Good morning, everyone. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to mention quickly where I am and why I haven't been able to upload in a little while. I mentioned in my latest video that I was going to be moving, and that has now taken place. I am currently in the ancient imperial capital of Japan, the city of Kyoto, where I will be living for the next couple of months. Basically, the company I work for have asked me to come out here and to supervise a project for them. And once that's done, I'm going to be moving back to the city and the apartment where I usually live. Don't worry though, I've brought my entire gaming setup and I'm going to be playing Tekken and making videos as usual. It just took me a little while to get set up here. I still haven't gotten a good microphone. I forgot to bring mine, so I'm doing this on a low-end headset, so I'm sorry if the audio quality is a little bit worse than usual. I will still be attending EVO Japan 2019, by the way, but now I'm going to have to travel for the event, so I'm just going to get on the bullet train and go back down to Kyushu, and I will be entering the tournament. I'm obviously not looking to win EVO or anything, but it's my first EVO, and I'm just there to sort of experience the whole thing. I've been really looking forward to it, so I wouldn't miss it for the world, so that's still happening. But let's jump into today's topic, which has to do with block punishment. Maybe I should start by explaining why I'm thinking about this lately. When I started learning about Tekken, the first sort of introduction to the theory behind Tekken, you know, when you take that fateful step from just looking at the screen and looking at the moves and actually trying to understand what is happening inside the mechanics of the game, the introduction for me, and I think for a lot of people, was the concept of frame data and block punishment. I considered it to be one of the most basic and important principles of learning a new character back then, and so whenever I was learning about a character, the first thing I would do would be to pick up their punishment and to memorize all the numbers, right? Not only the impact frames, but advantage on hit and so on. And that is the reason, by the way, I to this day, when I make a character guide, will start by going through their block punishment. And I've debated with myself whether or not I should keep on doing that, because I feel that block punishment has had an ever diminishing role in Tekken 7, and especially now in Season 2. And so that's what I want to talk about today. This really became noticeable to me when Season 2 was released, because a lot of characters got new and powerful block punishment in that patch. Two powerful examples would be Lars and Katarina, who both had their options nerfed because they were considered too powerful. But Katarina got a new 14 frame in the shape of her 3-string, Miguel got a new 13 frame in the shape of 3-4, and so on, just to mention a couple of examples on characters that I play. But an opinion that I sort of expressed back then was that I don't think you should be very excited about this, because I don't think new and powerful and shiny block punishment is gonna improve your standing in the tier list all that much. I think you are severely overestimating a powerful block punishment, and that's a controversial opinion and something a lot of people didn't agree with, and I can see that. What then happened is I started to play Bob, and one of the reasons I wanted to play Bob recently is he has a really cool 12 frame block punish that I really like. It has a cool sound effect that does a lot of damage, but I've been sort of noticing how very rarely I actually get to apply it when I've been playing lately, and so that's when I thought of the topic of today's video. So what I decided to do was I had a look at what I refer to as the sort of big 5, and these are just, in my opinion, the numbers that I've seen, the 5 most common characters that people play, and the most popular characters that you're constantly going to run into online. And these numbers are a little bit old, and they are specific for the Asia region where I live, but at least in my experience, the vast majority of matches you're going to have online are going to be against one of these 5 characters, and they are Dragunov, of course, Paul, Brian King, and Kazuya. And so I started to look at the sort of common moves and strategies of these characters, and something that stuck out to me, especially with Dragunov, is how they are able to apply their favorite strategies and really powerful packages of offense and defense without really having to open themselves up to being block punished. They're very good at that, so they're able to stay much safer than other characters in the cast. And if we're going to use Dragunov as an example here, this is not a video criticizing his design specifically or anything, I just thought it was a good example. If you're considering like the main moves that a Dragunov player will use in a match, you have basic pokes like jabs and a down forward 1, of course. You then have the running 2, one of the most powerful moves in the game, which is not only not punishable, it's plus on block. It's good on hit, counter hit, and block. The two ways you have of dealing with it is you can attempt to armor through it, which is risky and really scary, or you can try to move around it, which is, you know, risky and really scary. So that's why it's one of the most powerful moves in the game, right? You'll also see a lot of back 1+2, which is another move that is just going to land you at plus frames. It has very, very good frame data for how fast it is. Good to apply for Oki and stuff like that, of course. And so really the biggest culprit I want to get to here is the up forward 4. Moves that fall into this category I think tend to be some of the most powerful in the game. Devil Jin has a version of this. It's the same notation, and you know, he's famously probably the best character in the game. I think this is the main mid you should use anytime you're trying to mix a mid and a low for this character, because it's essentially a no risk high reward move. It doesn't get the same damage as a normal hop kick, but you're going to get a very respectable chunk of 41, maybe even more if you're able to interact with the wall with this move, which you will be able to do a lot of the time. It's pretty good at that, and it's very reliable, but it's not punishable at all. And so you can see how Dragunov is able to use his favorite and most powerful moves and really apply simple and effective strategies without really exposing himself to the risk of being block punished. And if you contrast that with characters who find themselves near the bottom of the tier list, or maybe just slightly lower tier characters, a good example could be, you know, my main Miguel. That's a character who will quite often have to apply moves in his standard offense that are punishable on block or duckable on reaction. For example, you're going to have to use down forward 1-2 with Miguel some of the time. If you don't, and you don't mix that in, then it's way too easy to duck your down forward 1-1, which is an important poke string for you. And so that's an example of a character who doesn't have this luxury of never having to worry about being block punished. And I found that even though it's not a linear relationship, a lot of the time characters who have this sort of aspect to them tend to be near the top, and characters who don't tend to be near the bottom. The next topic we need to talk about here is, of course, the concept of fast lows and low pokes. Lows in general, they're almost punishable across the board, and almost all characters in the game, including Dragunov, do have to use lows. This is his main and favorite low, the down 2, as you're probably aware. But these lows, even though they can be block punished, won't be a lot of the time because they simply won't get blocked. And I should talk a little bit about my philosophy when it comes to this topic. I started thinking about this when I saw an old Eris video back when I was new, where he talked about sort of his philosophy on fast lows. And it's basically that if this low is so fast that it can't be reacted to, if your opponent can't see the impact frames of this, then the only reason it will ever get blocked is because your opponent was able to completely predict it, or they were already preemptively ducking. And so if you are performing lows on an opponent who's already ducking, then that's your bad, and you definitely deserve to eat the punish that you're going to eat. And he compared fast lows like this to chip damage. We don't really have chip damage in Tekken, even though there are exceptions to it in this version. But this is a way to sort of stack fast and reliable damage on your opponent. And then the other main application of them is, of course, to condition your opponent to duck, which is when you get into, you know, if you're not completely new and you're playing at a slightly higher level, that is sort of the main strategic application of a lot of fast lows, at least traditionally. And so while you will be able to punish most low pokes with at least a while standing 4 for, you know, -11 or something like that, it's not an effective like defensive strategy you can use, and it definitely cannot be, you know, the way you're going to beat a Dragunov who is running at you with dynamite stuff like this, and then you're going to like try and beat him by applying, you know, low pokes, or sorry, while standing punishes like this that do like 15 damage, right? But that does still happen and does still definitely have a role in the game. Okay, the next topic I want to talk a little bit about here is I mentioned that there are characters in this game who do not have to use lows all that much, and I want to explain what I mean there. I'm referring to characters who excel at grappling. So mainly I'm talking about King, who is one of the big 5, and also Armor King, who has since his release become a very popular character that you will also run into a lot. And so the reason these characters tend not to perform lows or need to rely on lows as often as other characters is because that they can use their very powerful throws as a substitute for lows. Now, if you're new to Tekken, that might sound like a little bit of a strange concept. How can a throw that is such a different move from a low be a replacement? The reason is something that I mentioned earlier, the main strategic application of low pokes being that you're trying to condition your opponent to duck. You're using this to harass them, and even though I'm only dealing 17 damage at a time, Lars is eventually going to have to deal with this, and he's going to have to attempt the duck. And when he does, if I can predict that and be there with a mid, then I have a chance of dealing some very serious damage. Very broadly in general, very broadly speaking, a typical sort of main Tekken strategy is trying to connect with mids, and so you have to set those mids up, and one way you do that is you condition ducks with low pokes. The way King gets around this is he likes to just simply use his throws instead, because they are another move that are really attractive to attempt to duck. You can obviously break throws as well, but if you're playing a character like King who can mix his throws quite effectively, that's a scary thing to do, and it's much more potent to attempt to duck the throw, because whereas the broken throw won't give you any kind of advantage, really, definitely no guaranteed damage, ducking a throw will usually mean that you're able to launch your opponent from while standing. And so those characters like King and Armor King will typically use throws a lot instead of lows. This is apparently something that the very famous Tekken player JDCR agrees with. He recently released a YouTube video that I encourage you to watch if you haven't seen it, where he talked about how he likes to play Armor King. Very interesting to hear, a player who is basically as good as you can get, talking about how he likes to play a character. I think it's very interesting that he's making videos like that. But one thing he mentioned is that he doesn't really, I'm paraphrasing of course, but he doesn't really like to use those with Armor King. He prefers to use throws instead. And if you consider why, it's kind of obvious. A low poke like this, you'll usually find it somewhere in the range between 15 to 20 frames to impact. But a good throw with King, for example, a giant swing will come out at something like 10 frames, which is a lot faster. So if you're going to duck and try to deal with one of these moves defensively that way, it's much easier to do effectively against something that impacts at 17 or 18 frames as opposed to something that impacts at 10. It is also the case that when you do get a throw broken, like I said, it's not like you're going to get punished for doing that either. And so the point I'm trying to make with all of this is that a lot of the really popular characters in the game are able to apply some seriously potent strategies that will never really allow you to block punish them. In some cases you won't even get to while standing block punish them, because they don't really have to rely on low pokes all that much. And so the sort of thesis statement I want to make here is that I think block punishment has become an ever diminishing but still important part of Tekken 7. And when you look at block punishment, the thing I really want you to focus on is the 10 frame, because what I found when I looked across all these move lists is that there are a lot of cases where you will actually still be able to apply a 10 frame block punish. For example, if you're playing against Brian players will use his full crouch down forward 4, and that is a -10 move. And there are some other examples of when a really powerful big 5 characters use moves that are specifically -10, usually not more. But that's important to know, because having a good 10 frame block punisher can still be very significant. But I don't think when you're looking at characters who have really good stuff for 13 or 14, that is something that should get you all that excited. And when you consider whether or not you think a character is good or should be considered high tier or low tier, whether or not you want to pick up a character because they feel powerful to you, don't be overexcited about the fact that they have good punishment, but instead learn another lesson from this and consider, if I took this character and I removed all of the moves that are either reactable and duckable or punishable on block at more than -10, do I still have enough potent do I still have a potent toolkit here to do some very serious offensive stuff? Do I still have a strategy that is going to be very effective even when I'm playing against high level people? And if the answer to that is yes, I think you have found one of the keys to what makes a powerful character in this game, and it is something that I'm definitely going to consider as one of the main criteria for when I make tier lists in the future. And so that's basically what I wanted to talk about today. I know it was a lot of me babbling, but it's something that I've been sort of taking notes on and thinking about a lot lately. And I always enjoy making these slightly more technical, theoretical videos where we just talk about the sort of fickle beast that is Tekken. You know, you think you've understood it, you think you have a handle on the way it's supposed to be played, but it's like an eel. It just completely, it's like an octopus maybe, because not only does it slip out of your hands, it morphs and changes shape and changes color, and every time you think you've sort of understood exactly how it's supposed to go down, you learn something else and something new, and your perspective shifts. And I think one of the main reasons that best Tekken players in the world aren't necessarily the people who break down theory the best, but people who have a sort of innate instinct for the game tend to be the best, because it is difficult to understand, but it is you know, closer really in my opinion to an art form to play really well than it is, you know, applying theoretical concepts well in practice. But that's another tirade and a video for another day. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'm sorry about the lack of videos recently. I'm as always working on stuff right now that I want to make for you. I think the Bob tutorial might be the next thing, but I'm not making any promises, and I do have a tight work schedule, so please have patience with me, but I am still going to be making stuff, and I do have opportunities to record here in the future, because they've actually set me up in a really cool place. I have high-speed internet and everything, so hopefully you look forward to future videos. Thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye for now.